Thank you, thank you. So let me tell you briefly a little bit about myself. I'll tell you about BitcoinOS, and I'll tell you why I think our approach to modularity and to blockchain and crypto more generally is quite unusual and I think quite important. So my background is in machine learning, and that is what I was working on about 14 years ago. And because I was working on machine learning, I was at Carnegie Mellon University, I was reading through papers in network science, and I came across this one paper which really shouldn't have been in my pile. And it blew my mind away. So much that it completely changed the trajectory of my life. And what that paper was the Satoshi white paper. And as I was reading it, I spilt my coffee all over my laptop, destroyed my laptop, and then with sticky fingers was writing an email to everyone I knew, telling them that I thought that this was going to be the thing that I was going to be doing for the rest of my life and they should get involved too. And what struck me that moment as I was reading that paper was that it described a problem, a solution to what I thought was a truly deep and fundamental problem, which was that we had this amazing 21st century technology, the internet, and we had paired it with the social and economic and governance sophistication of 3000 BC. So there were no property rights, there was no ability to build a native economy, and everything was owned by a few pharaohs. And as I was reading this paper, it suddenly, my interpretation of it was that I was reading about the birth of digital property rights, which meant that it would suddenly become possible to build a native economy, which would encourage innovation and growth in a borderless digital world. And for me, as sort of like a transhumanist accelerationist working on machine learning at the time, this was mind-blowing. And here we are about, I think, 14 years later. And I feel like many of us in this industry have fundamentally misunderstood something. I think we as an industry have gone in the wrong direction. And I think the layer 2 modular world is going to help us solve that and represents in ways that perhaps are more fundamental than most people are talking about. A new chapter in how we think about and construct this sort of like internet for value or internet of money. So for the last 10 years, I've been working towards trying to bring to Bitcoin scalability, programmability, without having to change the fundamental properties of Bitcoin. And this is it's been a bit of a fool's errand. A lot of people have thought that what I've been working on is effectively impossible. But I looked at Bitcoin as what it is. It's a Turing-complete system. It's just that the code that we have, the scripting language that we have, and the limitations of the blocks themselves meant that there wasn't anything practical we could do with it. So I saw this to a great extent as a problem of finding the right optimization and the right hacks. And then over the last few years, because of the introduction of Taproot, we started to have some real breakthroughs. And in January of this year, we realized that we'd probably found a solution that would work and allow us to take any code of any arbitrary complexity and compile it, write it to Bitcoin, secure it with Bitcoin, and have it basically turning Bitcoin into a truly programmable system. And the reason we were able to do this is because, in part, of innovations that had been developed outside of Bitcoin, in Ethereum and the rest of the crypto space around ZK and modularity. So 6 weeks ago, maybe 7 at this point, for the first time ever, we were able to demonstrate on Bitcoin mainnet the ability to take a piece of software, compile it down to a ZK proof, write to that ZK proof to Bitcoin mainnet, and verify it. And this suddenly opened the door for us to introducing a new chapter in Bitcoin. The ability for us to build anything on Bitcoin. Okay, so that's, in my mind, a profoundly exciting thing. But one of the questions that people ask is why, right? We've already got Ethereum, we've already got Solana, we've already got scalability and modularity in other places. Bitcoin can just be BTC. Why would we care? And here is where I think we come to the fundamental misunderstanding or the fundamental mistake that I think we've made both with Bitcoin, in our understanding of Bitcoin, and our understanding of crypto more generally. And that is, who is the customer? Who is the user of a blockchain? If you go to conferences like this, frequently you will hear people say, we need to bring the next billion people to blockchain. We need to build mobile-first applications. We need to improve our UI. And I would tell you that all of those things are nice to haves, but they're not the core. They're not important. And maybe the biggest mistake that I'm seeing right now is people saying that it's time for us to start focusing on applications, not infrastructure. And I think we're nowhere near that. I think infrastructure is what's important, because for the last 5 or 10 years, we, for the most part, have been building the wrong infrastructure. And that's because we've had the wrong concept of what a blockchain even is and who its user is. A blockchain is a system for generating property rights. It's a system for registering and managing assets. And its user are those assets. The big challenge in crypto is not bringing the next billion users. The big challenge in crypto is bringing the next $1 trillion in value. And that actually is held in, not with 1 billion people, but perhaps 100 million. And the reason we've been making this fundamental mistake is we've been thinking about blockchains as software. So if you look at Ethereum, if you look at Solana, if you look at really any of these systems, they all behave like software. They upgrade every 6 months. They have non-backwards compatible breaking points. They have spaghetti code. There's literally not a single person in the entire universe who understands the full code base of Ethereum anymore. And so they're software. Move fast and break things makes sense for a social network, perhaps, but it doesn't make sense for a system which is designed or has the aspirations to manage trillions in dollars in value. And that is why, even though we've had all of this work and all of these features added to these other chains, none of them have $1 trillion in assets except for Bitcoin. Because Bitcoin is not software. Bitcoin is an entirely new beast, and we don't even have a name for it. So I'm going to suggest one. What Bitcoin is permaware. It's a system which is unchanging, completely regular, reliable, does not become more and more complex over time, and can be trusted to be around for generations. And the reason that that is so important is because right now, you walk into one of these rooms, you walk into one of these events, and what you see is mostly young men in their 20s and 30s trying to build systems which are going to be attractive to a bunch of gamblers. And the reason we're only attracting degens, the reason we are focused on Ponzinomics is not because that's what we want to be doing with our lives. It's because that's the only thing that the infrastructure of software will allow us to do. If your system cannot be trusted to last for 6 months or 2 years or 3 years, if you cannot build something sustainable on it, then the only financial use case that could possibly work on it is speculation, gambling, Ponzinomics. And if we want to be able to reach what is 98% of all financial activity, which is pensions, savings, mortgages, managing real-world assets, massive infrastructure investments, bonds, basically all of the financial world, we're going to need to be able to build it on infrastructure which can last for decades and generations. And right now, the only piece of permaware designed for that purpose is Bitcoin. So that is the mistake that we've made in the crypto world, but the mistake that has been made in the Bitcoin world is just as severe. The mistake that has been made in the Bitcoin world is thinking that you can build a new economy on a single asset. That you can have this reserve currency of BTC and no other assets, no other economy around it. Like we're all just going to be handing Bitcoin to each other all day long for the future, right? That obviously doesn't work. And so what crypto has done is it's created those tools for scalability, for programmability, for creating systems which allow you to manipulate assets. And what Bitcoin has created is a system which allows you to register and govern assets securely. And we are now at a point where if we want to move into the next phase of building this industry, into something real, into something valuable, and into something which is able to generate real value, we need to take the next step of marrying these two ideas. We need to have a permaware system which is able to manipulate and programmably control and build systems to manage all of the different assets of the world. And I think we're at an extremely exciting point, because I'm meeting you guys here at a point where on the one side in the crypto world we've been building out the ZK technology and the modular paradigm to make that possible on Bitcoin, and then on Bitcoin, partly, I think to a great extent because of the work that we've done at BitcoinOS, we now have the tooling to actually take those learnings and marry them to Bitcoin and create a new, better hybrid beast. A system of permaware capable of providing us not just with programmable assets, but with the ability to program them in any way. So I think we are standing at the junction of a point where we're all going to be new to crypto again. We're all going to be new to Bitcoin again. And now, 15 years into this journey, we're going to be in a position. We'll finally have the beginnings, the primitives on which to build infrastructure for real finance and for the next trillion, the next 10 trillion, the next 20 trillion in assets that we're going to manage. And this is an opportunity far beyond the scope of anything that I think most of us have been imagining. Because we, for the last 2 or 3 years, have been engaged in this endless squabble of trying to steal each other's users through more and more airdrops. This is not a deeply inspiring vision. And so for ourselves, for our industry, and for the world, I think we need a more inspiring vision. And that vision is being able to take the permanence of Bitcoin and the programmability of crypto, marry them, and build the financial system of the future. Thank you.